You're listening to The Blue Funk. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. The Spine here. Thank you so much for tuning into the very first episode of my new podcast, The Blue Funk, a podcast dealing with the day-to-day struggles of those who suffer from depression. The first episode is a prologue to the rest of the Blue Funk podcast. Later episodes will be longer, may feature guests, and be generally meatier. Quick disclaimer, I might be using swears and other expletives in this podcast. I'm a rambunctious teenager, it's just what I do. Now, this medium, podcasting, as well as this specific subject, which I will say in a moment, is very new to me, and it's very, very, very personal. See, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be talking about depression. As you might have guessed, I happen to be dealing with depression. It's been a very long personal battle of mine. But I'm not here to talk about myself. No, I'm here to talk about you, the listener. This podcast is about you. And for this specific episode, I want to talk about what it means to be depressed. See, depression is very mysterious. It's very enigmatic in that, apart from popular opinion, it's not really about being sad all the time, at least in my opinion. I believe that depression is more about not being comfortable living, if that makes much sense. Depression is about waking up and going to bed every day, making this decision in your head whether you should stay alive or you should, go all in and die. It's this dynamic where you have to choose whether you'd be happier being alive or you might be happier being dead. Because nobody knows what being dead is like. But it's a very morbid thought, a very morbid reality that people have to deal with, including myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not exempt from the things I'll be talking about on this podcast. But that weird dynamic of life and death, yes and no, 1 and 0, it makes it hard for people to realize, not only outsiders, but also the depressed themselves. It makes it hard for them to realize that, hey, maybe I'm dealing with something here. And depression is kind of like a weight. It's an ankle weight. And you're, it's like someone runs up to you and they chain this heavy ass weight around your ankle in the middle of a race, the race called life. And all of a sudden, now you're really slow and you can't catch up to anybody else, no matter how hard you try. In fact, you're going to have to work twice as hard as everyone else if you want to catch up. And that's kind of bullshit, right? So what do? Well, you have to go up to other people and ask them, hey, look, not to bother you, but, I'm in the middle of this race right now. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called the Race of Life. And, I was doing great. And now, all of a sudden, I have this weight around my ankle and I can't catch up anymore. And it would mean a lot to me if I could finish this race at the same time as everyone else. So if you would do me a very large favor and help me remove this weight, it'd mean a lot to me. And most people that you ask that kind of help from, they will be passive towards you. They will be, I don't know if I can help you. I mean, just think about how strong you'll be if you do this race with that weight on. Just imagine how strong you'll be. And it's like, well, I shouldn't have to imagine. I didn't choose to have this weight on me. Like, fuck you. Quit blowing smoke up my ass and help me out, please. Or, other people, they might be dismissive. They might think you're being dramatic or that you're over-exaggerating. And, folks, it's important to realize that you should not blame those people. You should not get upset at those people because they don't know what it's like to be slowed down. They have not experienced that before. They have nothing to relate it to. So being passive is kind of just the natural reaction. And I'm sure you have things that you don't know about, and when people ask you for help, you'd be passive too. We all do it, including myself. But that brings us to our next point. If they can't help us, then who will? Ladies and gentlemen, I think you all know who it is, and no, it's not Abraham Lincoln. It's up to us, the depressed, to help ourselves. It's up to us to stand up and, put it inside of ourselves to deal with our problems. And death is scary. Death is very, very scary. So we must learn to fight it. We must learn to stand up, say, hey, death, screw you. You have to look death in the eyes and say, you know what, death? Not today. Not today, buddy. I got some things going on. I have some papers to file. I have a script to write. So, not today. Please leave me alone. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's easy for you to say. What do I do? What do I do? How am I supposed to face death when I can't even get out of my own bed? And I understand completely what you mean. It is a challenge. And the thing about depression and apathy, they usually go hand in hand. And they make you feel like you do not love anything, and that nobody loves you, and that there is no love in the world. But you and I both know that it isn't actually true. It's pretty obvious when you look out into the world that there's a shit ton of love. Have any of you ever had a dog, like a Schnauzer, or a Pekingese, or a Yorkshire Terrier? Dogs are amazing. They're one of my favorite things. Because no matter how gloomy you are, no matter how bleak your perspective into the world seems to be, dogs do not care. Dogs will love you, and you will love your dog, no matter what, completely unconditionally, and it's unconditional. I love dogs. I should make a podcast about dogs. That was a joke. I'm probably never ever going to do that. Never even going to consider it after making that stupid joke. But back on track, ladies and gentlemen. Depression is the trickster, and it tries to fool you into believing that you cannot love. Depression would love it more than anything if you believe that there was no more love in the world, because that means it will thrive and it will do its job as it is supposed to. But it's not true, because you have something that you love to do. We all do, even if you don't know what that thing is yet. Unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath or anything like that, in which case this podcast may not be for you. We all have something that we love to do. Mine just happens to be broadcasting. Getting behind the microphone, getting my word out there, entertaining people, helping people out, using just the power of my voice. I love to do that. It makes me happy. It's very fulfilling. But love can fool you too, because I still feel the depression. It hasn't gone away. I can look inside my heart and see this pit of agony, despair, self-loathing, and self-doubt. It's still there. But it's comforting to know that I have control over it. Listen closely, folks. I can look deep inside myself and say, hey, depression, I see you're there. But instead of fighting you like I have for all these years, I'm going to acknowledge you. I'm going to respect you, and I'm going to ask you to respect me. I'm going to make peace with you. And then I'm going to go my separate way, and I'm going to live my life. And, that may seem like a crazy feat that, only a Buddhist monk can do, but I promise I'm not a Buddhist monk. I have hair on my head, and you can do it too. You have that ability. You have the ability to take control of that little pit inside of your heart. You just have to take it head on. It's scary, but if you can do it, if you can, get all that machismo up, and just look at the depression, reach out, and find inner peace, then you will be much, much happier. You won't have to depend on others anymore, because once you find peace, you will be the strongest, most driven person you know. Nobody else will compare to you, because they haven't done that. Most people don't choose. We all have the ability, but most people don't choose to reach inside and make peace. Because once you find peace, that means you find love again. It all comes back to you. It really does, I promise. And with that note, we end the prologue and the very first episode of the Blue Funk. Thank you all so much for listening, and make sure to tune in next time for episode 2. This has been The Spine on the Blue Funk, and I'll catch you all next time.